Everyone, I'm back again for the second part of the explanation about the project car rent application. So I will start from the um, main interface, the login activity. So this activity, I have the programming part uh, that connected to the Firebase. So first, before that, I will define the object inside the main activity, mm, like text here, and then button, and then here I'm using the uh, my own design that as a logo. So I put it in the resource. I'm not mistaken, it put here. So I put the resource for the logo to the drawable file. All right, let's start um, for the programming. All right, first I call the Firebase um, from the server. So I'm using Firebase out, and then uh, for check the user here. Uh, Here is the method. So the method is like if the user here is already signed in is not equal to null, that means the user is logged in already. So the application will be intent to the page main class, which mean here this one. So if the user is not null, it will automatically sign in the user inside here. And then the second part is where I define the object inside the activity here, like edit text and the button. And then for the method for the login, uh, to authenticate user from the Firebase. So I call it Firebase with sign in here. As you can see here, dot add complete listener. So all right, if user not fill the text here is not null, is empty, I mean, so it will set return to error. If the user didn't put anything, so it will return error, and then it will toast it once it's successful, and then once it's not successful, that means authenticate fail. All right, for the register user, I put it uh, here. This is the method for the register button. So it's the same method actually for the login, but the difference is when we use the Firebase method. So the Firebase method, we use Firebase out dot create user with email and password. So we call the object that we created as string here to get the input from the user. And then once it's successful, it will toast that register is successful, and then it will intend to the sign up activity, which here this is the sign up activity that require the user to fill their details. All right, and then once it fail, it will toast the fail to register. All right. this method is on start and on stop that call the out listener uh, uh, to check whether the user is not null or is already login or not. So the method on start will check to the out listener that we create the method that we created before. So if I mean when it stop, it will remove the out listener that we created. All right, next we move to the sign up. Only sign up, um, we only create for the actually almost the same for the first uh, define object and define the Firebase object and call it for our application. Uh, I'm using string here to call to create um, the child inside our Firebase, and this is inside. This is the uh, file that will be created in the Firebase storage, and this child will inside the Firebase database will be called user details, and then this integer that call that request uh, for image. Sorry, here to request the image to take image from the memory. So right here is the initialize object for the Firebase storage reference. So, and then this is the database reference, and then this is all right. I also declare for the uh, user ID that will create the unique ID for the user inside the Firebase database as I shown it before here. Yeah, this one. So it will create the unique ID uh, to 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 select the user that to select the data that the user we want to choose. The application will choose. So when the application authenticate based on this unique key, I mean unique ID by created by the Firebase, so it will take all the child inside that, right? And then I define the object inside my layout button, and then edit text also. So this is the user register for user details that I mentioned before here. So this is the method that I create for that to get the data from this layout. Okay, so first I create the progress dialog and then put a dialog after once the once the field is not equal to null. So and also the image must be should be filled by the user. Once it's not equal to null, it will call this method, and then we need to get the store reference from the database uh, to store our image, and, and then we put our data using method that put file from our reference uh, to get, I mean inside the Firebase database will be stored the image also as the link. All right. And once it's put inside the reference, we're on success method that this dialog that we called before will be dismissed. After that, will it will toss that successful data successfully uploaded. And then next we get the user input. The user input here in, we take from here, from the field here, in order to store it into uh, our database. In order to store it into our Firebase database, and then after that we take the information that the user uh, fill in, and then we save our information into our Firebase database. So we call the reference here, and then we create the child as to get the information of the specific user, so or the authenticate user. So we put the child as a user ID. So when we retrieve the data from Firebase database, it will not retrieve all, but it will retrieve um, based on the user ID. All right, it's only for the user detail here. So it will authenticate the user and then take all the authenticate user from the database. All right, and then we create also the child based on the input by the user, and that is the metric number here as a child after the user ID. Right, and then we set the value from user detail. So I create the data model and it calls user detail here. So the data will be stored based on this model, data model. So I store image, name, email, password, metric number, images as a string inside the Firebase database, and I create the constructor for get and set a method, and also I put it in a method override for the string data. Right, next, after the data stored into the Firebase database, it will finish the activity and then intend to the page main, which means here. All right. So also I add the when it's failure, once it failure, add on failure listener. It will display. It will display message that is error. Also, I put a progress bar to make sure uh, the data will be uploaded to the Firebase. And this method on activity result is for the request from the memory picture. So it will take the picture from the memory of the phone, right? And it will also store the data as the and take the image and put it inside here. Oh, I mean Not here. Yeah, here. It will set the image view here from the bitmap and media store image. Alright, and then get image extension. Also, I create the method of the get image to call the content resolver, and then this is for the cancel button. It will automatically sign out the user. I think it's, yeah, I name it as a cancel before, so I put it as a cancel button here. And then for take image, it will intend to the um, get content means the picture inside our memory. So the user will be able to choose the not taking by the camera, but taking from um, the phone memory. Right. After that, all right, that's all for the sign up for the user detail that I use. And then after that, we start for the page main activity. Here, the page main activity as shown here. Oops, sorry. I will close the layout. The page main activity here will be retrieve the data from Firebase database from the sign up method here. Alright, so we'll set the data uh, retrieve using, yeah, for the patchment activity also almost the same for the check the user whether it's still login or not, and we uh, define the database instance also, all the database instance. I also call the user ID to validate the user, and then I also define all the object inside the layout. After that, this is the retrieve data that I mentioned before. Retrieve data from Firebase database. So it will call the database reference, and we name it as ref, and we call the data from our table inside our Firebase database that called as user detail. Here, user details, and the child name is as metric ID, and then we call based on the user ID. So we add the we use the method add value event listener that to retrieve data from the Firebase database. Okay, here uh, on data change from value event listener, uh, we use the method for data snapshot, and then we call the data model that we created before, user detail dot class. This one, we call this one to retrieve the data, and then we set all the text here, and then the image view here. We set we get the image URL, and then it will resize the size uh, into our image view here, and then set text, all the set text here that will retrieve all the information about the details of the user details, such name, email, password, and metric number. All right, so on cancel, the database error will be um, yeah, on cancel it will be return the database error. So, and for the list view here, I use the array list uh, because we want to take we want to put all the customer that order for that booking for the car. So I create another data models and adapter for the customer. Sorry, which one? Yeah, this one. This one for the data model for the customer, and then we create the a new array list for that, and then we get also we define the object inside the layout for the list view as the list one, and then get the database reference from mycar.class. So database reference is uh, here from the book car that I name it as customer. So in the book card, it will be create a new table to the Firebase database called customer. So I call this method from the book card. I call this method from the book card class. So the reference is based on that. Uh, because we only call the data inside the page main, not upload the data. So this is for retrieving data. So alright, for displaying in data into list view, it will fetch the data. Also we use add value event listener. So we fetch data from Firebase database. So using the data snapshot dot get children. So for the in order to fetch the data, we need the default constructor from the default constructor from the customer class. So this is the customer class that our data model. So this is the default constructor to call all the object. All right. So and then we set our adapter here into our page main based on uh, this design, list view design. So I designed the list view here. Let's see, custom list book. This is the custom list that I created for be called by the page main. So uh, that will be displayed inside our page main here as this design. All right, let's close it. And then from our customer list, so the customer list is a new array list. So the data will be taken from the Firebase database, and then will be create a new array list, and then will be fetch the data and then show inside our list view. So this is for the set adapter to create the customized list view. So on cancel also the database will be error. So and then next it's set list when the item is selected. So when the item is selected, it will be change the color. So I create the method for the change the color here in the drawable research as my selector. So here it will be state true for the state press, and then state over, and then state selected. But I'm only using for the state selected and the page man. So when it's selected, it will be changed the color. Oops, sorry. So also I create the color, the private color outside of oops outside of uh, the color here. So this is on I created for uh, on selected and then put it inside the put it inside the coding.